Hey everybody, welcome back to Money Made Simple with Oakwood Wealth Partners. I'm Nick Lockwood, one of the financial planners with Oakwood. I'm joined here by my dad, Mike Lockwood. Before we get rolling here, I wanted to at least point out that it's a pretty big day. My dad has shaved. So if you watch the last episode, you'll see that he's shaved since then. So
Is that why you wanted to introduce the show?
no, I don't know. I think you look good. I think you look good either way.
Hey,
So
every month it's gonna be a different look,
yeah,
so
yeah. Well, hey, today the topic that we were hoping to go through was financial clarity versus financial confusion, and so the whole goal with this podcast is we see that there's a lack of financial literacy, and so confusion versus clarity is part of the reason we think that people oftentimes get themselves maybe not as far as they want to go in their financial journey or where they want to be financially. So, with that in mind, financial confusion versus financial clarity, we've got a couple topics that we'd like to go through with you together. But, Dad, anything that you want to kind of say here at the
yeah,
beginning?
yeah, we think this is an important topic. I mean, one of the things that we ask our folks when they come in is what keeps them up at night? What worries them? And it's funny when I ask a couple, traditionally the spouse, the mom, the lady, her kids keep her up at night, and that and their family versus the dad, the male, it's career, it's money, things like that, and that's fine, it's fine. But when I go back and I ask the question again, you know, Mary, if John wasn't here, what would keep you up at night? And now she's talking more about the family, but she's talking about money too. So if you don't have a clear direction, you can't move forward in life. And I think that's a big deal with us, is we're trying to give folks a direction to kind of keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a couple different things that we've identified that can lead to financial confusion when clarity is our ultimate goal. So we thought that we'd jump through maybe a couple of those different things that we've identified and see what maybe insight you have into that and how we can maybe help people get past that confusion that they have. So right off the top, folks, I think of myself, right? I work out, I try to every morning. I at least 4 days a week, if I'm being honest. I try to get 5, but sometimes it's 4. Um, I could work out on my own, but I choose to go somewhere that is, it's a class environment with an instructor, and that instructor's job is to guide us through the workout. I feel like for me, I could go work out on my own, but I just am not as effective as if I have somebody there kind of pushing me and making sure that I'm keeping track of my form or, making me go a little bit harder on the cardio or whatever it may be. So obviously we're in the financial planning industry. That's what we wanted to focus on today. But I guess I just want to kind of plug that having a guide or somebody that you can bounce ideas off of oftentimes can help get us to the next level of wherever we're trying to go, whether that's fitness or financial planning. So maybe we start there. Just one item that we've identified that will help people get more to clarity in their finances versus confusion is having that guide. So, Dad, maybe what examples or past things have you been through along those lines that you feel like have helped people get to the next level?
Yeah, I've coached my whole life. I coached, obviously, I started off at a college. I coached a high school football team for a couple years. Then, when you and your brother and sister got older, I coached them. So I've got this kind of coach mentality. But the thing that we hear a lot about is our clients asking their friends or their family what to do with their financial kind of planning and how to invest and what and which direction to go. But the challenge with that is that you have to remember the friend you're asking or the coworker that you're asking, they have different goals. They have different levels of risk that you have. They have different experiences with money. They have, I mean, they're with either themselves or their parents. So they're walking a different path than you are. And so for you to rely on somebody saying you should invest in this stock or this fund because I do, you're setting yourself up for failure. We've seen this happen a lot in the sense that people will give advice to their coworker, and then their coworker retires, and now who do they listen to? So having a coach in your corner, if nothing else, but to double check the work that you've done becomes very important. We have I can give you a couple examples. We've dealt with in the past where a husband and wife will come in and they've got it all taken care of, right, Nick? I mean, they said, we're just here. We think we got it. Just a second opinion, and we'll look at everything. And typically, the conversation will say, yes, you've done a great job. There's no doubt you've put some work into this, and you've done a great job. But um, there's a couple things I want to point out to you to see if you thought about. So you've named your living trust. You have a living trust, very good, but you've named your trust as a beneficiary on your retirement account. Do you understand the pros and cons of that, and how you've basically hurt your children with that type of titling? And so just little points that we kind of point out, and then all of a sudden, oh, I can see why we need a coach. Understanding distribution options on different types of retirement plans are different. They're all not the same. So there's a lot of things that we just fine tune when we see it on second opinions. But we also tell people we're your personal CFO, right, Nick? I mean, so how many times have you had, emails coming through on questions that had nothing to do with what you talked to them about, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, just as you're saying that, I'm thinking we have folks who come in who have done zero planning whatsoever, right? They couldn't tell you the difference between a stock and a bond, and that's okay. And then we've got folks on the other end of the spectrum who they know that they need their estate documents done, right? They understand the retirement accounts, the deferred comp plans, whatever it may be, and they've got a really good grip on it. I feel like interestingly though, in each of those cases, there's always other fine tuning that can be done. And oftentimes we just don't know what we don't know, and therefore we can't take action on it because we're not aware of it. So um yeah, I think that's a good point. And
Y-
and the other thing I was gonna say is in today's day and age, our access to information is there's so much that we can take in. And it's a good thing. It really is a good thing because JP Morgan's got their guide to the markets, and Vanguard releases their analysis of what they think is going to happen. Chat GPT, right, is a good tool that we can access to. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to take all that information and actually do something with it, right? It's helpful if we know the information, but having somebody who can make sense of all that info, apply it to their situation, and then come up with a plan to take action and implement those different changes. I think is really important too. Anything else that you kind of have
Hey,
on
Nick,
that?
let me ask you. You brought up Chat GPT. Do you think AI could be your financial advisor?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My what I've told people is my and if I could look into the future, I think people who are experts in their field will have a place for sure. I mean, I think it's a long way to go before AI can do all the day-to-day things that everybody fears that AI will be able to do. Like I really do think it's a long time before we're there. But eventually, if technology keeps speeding up at the pace that it has been, I could see a world where AI can do a lot of different tasks that we can all do. And maybe that's a big hoax, and we're making like a dot-com bubble type of thing, and it's not going to transform things as much as people are afraid of. But I've always said I think if people are truly experts in their field and they can take information, clean it up and translate it down to the end person or the end client or whatever it may be, and help them come up with a plan to implement those things. I think there's always going to be a place for those types of people. So, like, I think about ChatGPT right now. If I go in there and I ask an estate planning question, it'll give me a pretty interesting output that answers my question. But if I don't prompt it with the right prompting questions, it's not gonna give me the full detail, right, and help me address all these little, details that should go into an estate plan, right, unless I prompt it. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm
Yeah,
saying there. So
yeah.
it takes an accurate
You have to
prompt.
ask the right question.
Yeah, exactly. You have to know the prompting questions to ask to therefore get the information that you want at the end of the day. So,
Versus a financial advisor will ask you the right questions, right? Because
yeah.
I look from the other side, right? I mean, you're looking from a 30-year-old's lens. I'm looking through a 60-year-old lens. Um, you know, a lot of folks, index investing is kind of the old school AI, if that makes sense, right? It was a hands off, and I'm not going to think, but that works great, that works fine. But what happens as folks get closer to um, the day are going to retire, is they just get older, they are looking more for somebody to coach them through this stuff instead of them trying to figure out, because now you're talking about larger sums of money. We I don't know, 5 years ago, Nick, robo advisors were the big, fear for the financial advising community. um, and for a young person starting off, a robo advisor is probably fine. But when you start getting larger sums of money, and now you've got children and people that you care about that need to be taken care of after you're gone, you're so afraid of trying to do this on your own or using an AI or a robo advisor kind of environment. So this is where the coaching really comes into play, and that's what I love about our group, is that we have advisors my age that have been through a lot and seen a lot, and I'm looking through my 62-year-old lens at life. But then you've got advisors your age, Nick, that are looking through the 30-year lens and can help with the parents understanding the next generation of products and opportunities. So
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking nowadays there's so many different let's just think about investing, right? Our group will focus on a lot more than just investing, but I think oftentimes when people think about a financial advisor, financial planning firm, that's what they're thinking of is, can you invest my money for me? If you're looking for investments, right, there's a lot of really good new companies that are coming out that make investing really, really accessible and user friendly, right? It's no longer this, I have to go through my broker like I did maybe back in the 70s. It's a lot easier to do. You pull up an app on your phone, deposit some money from your checking account, and then you go buy whatever stock you want to buy. It really, truly is easy. Now, that it serves a role, right? A really easy to use app where you can go buy whatever stock you'd like to buy is not going to help you with understanding the implications of annuity death claims, let's say, right? So I think there's, just as we move forward into this new age and we think about confusion versus clarity and having a guide and things like that, I think it's important when people go about their finances and investing and doing all the things that they're doing, just having somebody in your corner there to be able to help you make sense of some of these more complicated cases that just aren't going to be addressed in something like an investing app on your phone. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
you got me thinking chat GPT and the future of the industry and investing and kind of where that goes. And if we're trying to get clarity, right, what's the role for um, an advisor versus a client versus an investment platform, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean the chat GPT, the online investing, that's all makes it easy, but ultimately it makes it more confusing too. I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good point. Being able to
How
make
do they all tie
sense.
to, how do they all
Right.
tie together if you've got all these different apps and different investment opportunities, and how you're titling your assets and things like that. So it is a changing world, and I think that's even more so why you need a professional kind of looking over your shoulder. Hey Nick, another area that we kind of see. So when folks don't take action, I think, and start on that path towards what we call financial independence, we think it's they're lacking a coach, right? They've stuck their head in the sand for quite a while, and they maybe they don't want to deal with it. And we have plenty of examples around that. Another reason why people are confused, I think, is they may have made that decision to hire a coach and have somebody help them, but they ended up in the wrong type of investments, the wrong type of, like as you mentioned earlier, the titling of an annuity that wasn't done correctly, and so some folks I feel like have been burned by financial advisors in the past, and they have a bit of a distaste in their mouth, and so now it's a matter of, let me just figure out this on my own, or hopefully I can ask somebody for a financial advisor that they trust. Can I mean, does that make sense too? I That's what I feel is happening out there too when people come in.
I think oftentimes advisors can suggest different tools to their clients. And some of these tools in the industry are very complicated. And when I say tools, I mean different types of investment products. Just generally speaking, investment products. Some can be very confusing, and so they might sound great in the moment when they're initially brought up, and a client decides to use that tool to help them get to their end goal. But 20, 30 years go by, and
Or
if
less.
there's no plan
Yeah.
done, right, what we can't I can hardly remember what I did last week, let alone a financial a tool that I used 30 years ago, right? So, I think that can ultimately add to that confusion versus clarity. And just going back, if I'm, fast forward to I'm retired and I've got a bunch of different investment accounts with different bells and whistles and things like that that all sounded really good when I put them in place, but I can't make sense of them. I'm not going to feel confident when I get to my retirement that I'm going to be able to make sense of all this and actually generate income out of my investment accounts or whatever it may be. So, that's where I go. I think, yeah. Maybe I'll stop there and see what you
Yeah,
have.
and again, it's not that anybody did anything wrong. It's just that maybe that was the right tool, to use your word, at that time in their life. And so when those folks come into our office, many times we're saying, okay, let us help you understand what you have and let's work around that. Let's use that tool because that's already in place. Now, what tools do we need to work around that? And so that's an easy, it's not, I shouldn't say easy, but to us it's an easy fix because we know enough about what's out there that we can patch around it, so to speak, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, take an annuity, for example, that, this happens all the time. People come in with an annuity that they bought maybe 20 years ago. And depending on the annuities, but let's just say, right, there's an account value, there's a death benefit, there's a benefit base that's going to generate income. I mean, it took me when I first started with you guys, Dad, it took me 3 years to understand the difference between those three values, And so when people come in, just
Well,
even
the
understanding what it
first
is.
2 years it took you to learn how to spell annuity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. As everyone knows, I did focus on dance a lot in college with my ballet classes. So, but yeah, point being, it doesn't necessarily mean that that annuity is bad or wrong for the client. But if we can't make sense of it and figure out, okay, we have this, what do we do with it? Again, it just leads to that confusion, and that confusion leads to inaction, and that inaction leads to potentially, right, a mess for our families or for ourselves, or just not being as efficient as we can be. Okay, moving on here. So we talked about, maybe products or investments that folks have decided to use and move forward with that they don't quite understand. What happens though if part of someone's confusion is coming from just not understanding their advisor and the plan that the advisor has for them? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. What sorts of things have you seen from folks with other advisors that maybe our clients just aren't understanding, and therefore still have confusion despite having worked with an advisor?
Yeah, one of our biggest compliments to from our clients is they tell us how simple we make it. We have a couple different tools that we've used to simplify the whole planning process and understanding the different implications of assets and how they're transferred to their kids. Um, we've heard comments that, there's a lot of there's a lot of great financial advisors out there. I know a lot of them. um, but sometimes our clients will tell us, I have a financial advisor, and I know he's good. I know he's smart, but honestly, when I see him every 6 months, um, I come out feeling dumber than I went in. And I, what do you mean? He said, well, I can't understand some of the concepts that he's trying to explain to me, and I just don't get it. And so they feel like they've got somebody, and it's probably it works, right? I mean, as long as you trust that person, that advisor, and you feel like they're steering you in the right direction, it's good. But when you're in the dark about what you're investing in and why you're investing in it, and the implications of if you want to take money out, when you want to take it out, and things like that, you're just as well off doing it yourself almost, because you're still confused because they're not. You can go in and ask the questions, and if you're not getting the answers that you understand, you need to ask again. You need to just keep asking it in a different way. And the good financial advisors, I think, will stay with you, and keep. It's almost like the Chat GPT, right, Nick? The AI. If you don't ask the right question, you're not going to get the right answer. And if you don't know the right question to ask, how do you how do you move forward?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think with other, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Is you just, if you're not understanding and you're working with an advisor, don't be afraid to speak up and ask the questions and say, hey, I need you to really make this simple for me because I want to be able to take this information back home and explain it to my spouse, or whatever it may be. I think it would be really good, and you should make sure that what you're doing is understood so that you can explain it to somebody else. I mean, the way that I try to approach explaining ideas to folks that come into our office is I try to explain it like I would explain to a sixth grader, and I hope that doesn't offend people, but right, if someone's going to explain to me the anatomy of the heart, right, I need them to make it really simple and talk to me about the chambers and the direction of the blood flow before they get into all the details of the neurons that are firing in there or whatever's going on, right? So when I explain financial concepts to people, I always try to make sure it's very clear what are the main points, how does this lead to this, lead to this, and then check in. Hey, does that make sense? What questions do you have on that? Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure people are better equipped when they leave our office than when they showed up. I would love for them to be able to go home and say, here's what I learned today. And this is why I'm doing the things that I'm doing with these different investment accounts, because I know that's going to make them feel more
and
empowered to be able to do
yeah,
the things that they want to do.
and Nick, to that point, and we do understand that financial advisors should have to repeat the same concept a couple times, because we live this, we live in this world. Other folks don't live in this world, and so a financial advisor needs to be patient, and continue to kind of okay, I answered that question 3 or 4 times already, but I'm going to answer it again because it's the right thing to do. If you don't understand what you have, again, you go back, if you don't understand what you have and why you're doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's early on. I've been doing this a long time, and back in the tech bubble craze of 2000s, Nick, you weren't around, but people would buy these stocks that they would see, on, I don't know, Schwab or wherever, and I would say, "So what do they do? What that company that you just bought, what are they making?" "Well, I don't know, but the stock price is up." So you don't know any of the financials. You don't know anything about that company. All you know is the stock price went up. It goes back to, if you don't understand what you own, then why do you own it? And I think that happens a lot, especially financial advisors that aren't quite explaining it. You know, um, Again, there's a lot of great financial advisors out there. There's some that I don't really. I'm not sure if I agree with them. I remember one financial advisor, I don't know, shoot, 25 years ago, said that, yeah, I want them to always call me, if they don't understand something, which I get. But my attitude is, I want to explain it so well, and I want you to understand it, so you don't feel like you have to call me to explain it. When you call me, I want to talk about your family. I want to talk about your kids. I want to talk about where you went to. I just talked to a lady today that just got back from Kenya. I want to have those conversations. I can certainly talk about, the investments that we had and everything, and I'll do that. I'll keep doing that. But if I educate you and you understand what you're doing, then we get to move on to the important stuff like how's your family. So again, I keep going back. Money is just a tool. That's all money is. It's a tool to take care of those you love and you care about. And so, how do we take care of that tool for you and make sure that you can use it the way you need to use it? So,
So what sort of tangible, actionable items do you think people can take away from this podcast just to get started? Whether it's somebody who, right, doesn't know a stock from a bond versus people who have done a lot of planning work on their own. Like what sort of things, if your goal is I want financial clarity, what are the first couple things that you would do, or some things that people can use?
yeah, that's a little, um, yeah, when we do, we do a lot of retirement planning focus. And so, one of the first steps I always try to start with is where is your income coming from in retirement? So I would make a list of where your income is going to come from retirement. And your social security, a pension might be in there. If you have rental income, that's going to be income coming in from retirement. Then you I'm just giving you, if you never hired a financial advisor, which I hope you would, how do you figure out that next step? You're going to look at your income, and then you're going to look at your expenses. How much do you need to s- need to spend? And remember, that's got to inflate up. And now your job is to fill that gap between the fixed income and the expenses. So having an inventory of your income sources, having a good expense sheet, keeping track of your expenses.
So are you telling me to make a budget?
Yeah, I've told you make a budget for 30 years. Yeah, so yeah, have a budget, but the B's the bad word. Your mom doesn't like the B word, and
Just
most
call it
people
the
don't.
expense list.
Yeah, most people don't like a B word. Yeah, the B word. But yeah, so have a good grasp of your expenses, because again, if your expenses, here's the thing we always tell people: if your expenses are low while you're working, they're going to be low in retirement. If you're spending like a drunken sailor while you're working, you're going to be spending like a drunken sailor when you retire. And so the expenses don't change a lot between working days and retirement days. So having a good grasp of your expenses. Do you need to have your mortgage paid off when you retire, Nick?
Um, you, it's dependent on the person. I would say you don't
Exactly.
have to, generally,
Exactly.
but yeah.
I mean, a lot of folks believe I don't want any debt when I retire. And some folks say, yeah, don't worry about the mortgage. I may not live there forever. So every person is going to be different. So don't let anybody tell you should have your mortgage paid off. Credit cards, absolutely no credit card debt. But my point is, there's a lot of things that you can do. So income sources, budgeting, have an expense sheet, and then an asset page of what you of the retirement accounts you have. We have so many folks that come in and they have lost retirement accounts. They worked at a facility and all of a sudden they're getting a note, hey, you've got some money here. And so find those places. But yeah, that's what I would do. So going back to clarity versus confusion and the examples that we gave, find a coach. Find somebody you respect and you trust. Ask around. That's number one. Two, understand what you have and why you have it. Okay, understand what you have and why you have it. And three, make sure you understand your advisor. Just keep sending them emails, questions. You know, and they can start simple and end up being complicated questions, but that you got to start somewhere and reach out and communicate with them. So
Yeah, one other thing to just maybe a takeaway, and this is something that I've tried to implement here just within my own family is, and I know dad, you do the same thing too, but talk, if you're married, talk to your spouse about what it is that you have. If you're the person in the family who really takes control of the finances, we were talking about taking inventory. So I would say that's step number one is figure out, okay, what do we have, right? What's our our income sources, what do we need monthly from an expense standpoint, where our savings accounts, our retirement accounts, right? Just understanding what it is we have, and then make sure you communicate with your spouse, because something that we often see is we'll have, well, maybe I'll just start with myself. I would hate for me to pass away and then my wife not have any clue what's going on with the finances in our family, because I want to make sure that she can make decisions on her own if I'm not here. And we've got other really good contacts that we could go to. Dad, of course, you, any of the planners on our team. I've got a buddy of mine who's an advisor at a different firm that I would trust implicitly, if I wasn't around. But I would just encourage people, make sure you're sharing once a year or something. Just talk with your spouse, say, here's what we have, take inventory together, and see what questions you have. If there's
Yeah, Nick, you know this, but I have, and you've seen it. I've got I call it my Lockwood financial inventory sheet, and it has everything from the assets to the Social Security benefit, the pensions, everything that your mom, my wife, would need. She doesn't want to know about that, but we honestly, once a year, we have a little date where I'm pulling this thing out, I'm going over it again, and I'm also telling her who she's going to contact if something happens to me. And fortunately, we have Nick, but along with Nick, I have, and this is going to sound interesting, but I pay my own financial advisor, and it's not Nick. So I have another person that overlooks my sources. And I went to my wife and I said, we need a financial advisor, and it can't be me and it can't be Nick. Who do you know and you trust? And so she picked out who she trusted to work with, because she knows that if I'm not here, he's going to keep things simple for her, and he's going to be able to explain it to where she understands it, and she trusts him implicitly. So again, if something happens to Nick and Nick's not around and Nick's just not in the picture, we know we've got a financial advisor for my wife. And I'm in the business. I'm in the business. So think about that. The one thing I'll tell you is, it's one thing to do a financial plan, right? You to go and have, but if you don't implement the financial plan, it's not worth the money the 60 pages is printed on. You know what I'm saying? If somebody just hands you a binder with a financial plan and that's what you pay for, if you don't implement it, you wasted your money. So your financial plan, when you're done, and this is what we do, you should have a 2-page to-do list. And that's it. 60 pages of backup, but narrow it down to give me 2 pages of to-dos. And our folks love that. They'll come back with that 2 page that I've did this, I've done this, I've done this. Now what else do we need to do?
So if you feel like you could use a little bit of extra information, just as a reminder, we have a copy of the book that my dad wrote. It's called The Decision Decade. It's available on our website. So if you just go to oakwoodwealthpartners.com, you'll see a pop-up that comes up on your screen there. Just plug in your name. It might ask you for your email, and then hit submit, and we'll send you a copy of the book. And I think it'll be a really good spot to start, just giving you a good overview of a high level look at our financial situation, how we think about it, and maybe some actionable items that you can implement into your own life to bring some additional clarity, or hopefully get you to a point of clarity with your finances. So, Dad, in closing here, anything else you'd like to add as we wrap up?
No, again, we appreciate your time and listening, and hopefully we've given you a couple quick to-dos and some stories about our experience of doing this for so long. Hey, everybody, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back on the next episode of Money Made Simple.